why did deep state, I'm actually putting this in your lower here, why did deep state grow so big? There's an answer to this, okay? There's a really fascinating answer to this, and I kind of touched on it yesterday when we were talking about the Kennedy files, but it has a lot to do with Barack Obama's modernization of what's called the Smith-Mundt Act of 2012. That was the modernization. If you go back, the Smith-Mundt Act actually came out in 1945, and 1948. It was designed to help us control the flow of information all over the world. That's what our Voice of America and Radio Free Europe was doing. We were pushing out propaganda because we wanted our side to be heard. And I'm a realist, I get it. You want your side to be heard. And we had such the advantage in this because we were way ahead of any of the other countries, right? When it came to radio, when it came to television, when it came to Hollywood. And so this was an effort that was made in 1948 as they were trying to fight the Cold War to basically say, okay, we're going to create all this propaganda and we're going to send it all over the world. But here's the deal. That propaganda doesn't come home. We send it out, but it doesn't come back in. And we developed, thanks to the Smith-Mundt Act in 1948, a Chinese wall preventing any of that propaganda paid for, courtesy of you, the U.S. taxpayer, paid for by us, that was not allowed to come back. In other words, you couldn't turn it on the American people until Obama. All right, so in 2013, the amendment went through. It's known as the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012. And basically that domestic ban on propaganda that U.S. taxpayers were paying for, think USAID, think NGOs, all this money that was going to all this stuff, guess what? To journalist organizations, it was suddenly allowed to come back on shore. And that, ladies and gentlemen, helps to explain the insanity that we've been seeing over the last however many, 10 years? I mean, it's only been around for like 12 years. Sure enough, Obama, right? Wasn't he the one who talked about the echo chambers? And if you just repeat something over and over and over again, eventually everybody will believe it. Mike Pence, who used to work at the State Department and has just made this his passion in his career to try and ensure that we have real freedom of speech here in the United States of America. He talked about this on Joe Rogan's show. I played a bunch of the sound yesterday as it related to the JFK files. I'm not going to do that today, just a little snippet. I want you to just hear him because I think he's great on this.
What was done then under Obama was the effective repeal of it. It was called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. But the modernization got rid of the whole purpose of it, the firewall, because at the time, the media and media control was seen as the linchpin crux of winning the Cold War, piping in pro-U.S. Media influence because everything moved after World War II from kinetic warfare and military occupation. You know, we used to militarily occupy the Philippines, for example, after we won the Spanish-American War, but that was banned under international law. Territorial acquisition by military force in 1948. So we had to win elections, and we had to influence the passage of laws in foreign countries by having an apparatus inside those countries that influenced the hearts and minds of people, which influenced who they voted for, which then determined the government. So you had to move towards political vassalage rather than military occupation. And what the Smith-Mundt Act did is, simultaneous with the creation of this in 1948, Congress recognized the Frankensteinian monster they were creating by authorizing a covert, permanent Department of Dirty Tricks, and this is their phrase, not mine, to do this cloak and dagger, to infiltrate and co-opt the universities, the unions, the media, the politicians, the judges, the whole swarm army. You know, what I have been calling for a long time the USAID Truman Show, because these people in these foreign countries have no idea how many of the things they interact with that are effectively a movie set being constructed by the U.S. State Department and its sister influences.
I mean, that's freaky. It's just freaky stuff. Anyway, again, Mike's right. So the State Department's out there pulling all these strings, and they got a ton of money to do it. because they want to influence opinion and therefore elections all over the world. And we choose, in the name of democracy, exactly who we want to influence and how we want to influence them. And we get a lot of power to do so. But what happens when you turn all of that inward? I mean, the whole idea behind the original Smith-Mundt Act was that you never turned it inward. You never turned it on your people. It was always to be used overseas. And not until Obama did we actually start using it internally. And so now what has come out? Oh, all the USAID money going to the New York Times, going to Politico, going to Reuters, going to the BBC, and all of the domestic issues that they would take on with American politics. This is all part of one and the same. Right? They actually turned it on us as far back as 2013 when it was first enacted by the Department of Defense. And so this is all being done, in the name of preserving democracy, just like we pull overseas. And now we're doing it here at home. So when you ask, like, how did this deep state get so big? Why is it that there's a chorus that I hear out of Disney, out of Whoopi Goldberg and The View, out of everybody on Morning Joe, out of the New York Times, the Washington Post? Why was it all the same? Well, there was so much money at stake. Okay, I promised only one Mike Benz soundbite. We're gonna have to get him on the show. I don't have a ton of guests on the show, but like I really, really am fascinated by this. So let's go back to him very quickly.
We're up against a much actually deeper, darker problem with this USAID scandal. And as people will see increasingly, the scandals that will break open at the Pentagon and the State Department, which is that we have a Smith-Mundt problem for funding and operations. It's not just propaganda. The blob, our foreign policy establishment, can fund groups that effectively work with prosecutors domestically, or that work at media. Dual use. We give them foreign grants to do media propaganda abroad, but they operate here. Or social media censorship, to coerce foreign countries to pass foreign censorship laws that explicitly and are intended to attack U.S. social media companies and in U.S. peer-to-peer speech. So we need that protection. If we're going to keep this function at all, we need a hard firewall and absolute grotesque penalties for any violation.
Wow. Okay. And again, not to be too anti-Obama, but think about the reality that he turned this thing on its head. And we don't have the Chinese wall anymore. So all the propaganda that we were selling overseas that was designed to influence elections overseas got turned back on us. And so you ask now, why is there this lawfare? Why do we have these judges doing this, that, and the other? This is why. Or at least a big part of why. And so now they're kind of up a creek without a paddle. I got to tell you guys, I think they have been exposed massively, and they're going to continue to be exposed, and they're on the wrong side of every single issue.